So what I want to do now is kind of go through how strong is the case against Bryan Kohberger. And what I want to do is make sure that everybody remembers that everything in an arrest affidavit is not complete. This is just a probable cause arrest affidavit, and you won't hear all the complete details in this case until trial. And that has been the biggest thing that everybody's been complaining about. Oh, this is all they have. This is all that they have to arrest him. This is going to be the entire case. No, this is just to be presented in front of a judge for a judge to look at and make the determination that this person can be arrested for the, tied to allegedly to doing these crimes. So that's why it's not as detailed. And you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna find out in trial, there is going to be a lot of evidence. And I think that this is gonna go one or two ways. I think that the prosecution is gonna have so much evidence that it's almost going to be a slam dunk right away, or there's going to be a long trial with very meticulous angles and information that's going to be sorted through and digested. And that's all the stuff that I like to get into and I like to hear. So anyway, this is in a probable cause. And another thing too is that everybody's always guilty is guilty. A probable cause affidavit is not means that you're not guilty, and you're as guilty as you think Kohberger is. As he may be right now, he still has the right to a fair trial, and that's how our judicial system works. And you have to keep that in mind. Everybody is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So he's got to go through the process. He has to get due process. And that's just the way that our system works. So what I did here is I broke down now is some things that could help the prosecution. And we'll look at all the circumstantial evidence so far in this case. So you look at Kohberger himself. He's a PhD student at nearby Washington State University, which is like 10 miles from where King Road is. So he's in and around that area. He's familiar with that area. He travels that area. We know now that Bryan owns the white Hyundai Elantra that's been seen all over camera footage, closed capture camera footage in and around that area. We have lots of camera and cell phone pings in and around that area, around King Road, around the Moscow University, around obviously Washington State University. He's been in and around the area of King Road for months before the murders. So we know that. We know that his cell phone has pinged. They have camera data, camera footage as well of his car being in that area. The police tracked the car that may have been Bryan's to and from the crime scene. Investigator also canvassed the area of King Road to collect video footage, which revealed a white sedan, later identified as a white Hyundai Elantra, traveling towards the home around 3:30, making several passes around the house and departing the area around 4:20 a.m. at a high rate of speed. Security footage from the campus of Washington State University in Pullman, Washington, where Kohberger is a graduate student, showed a similar white sedan heading in the direction of Moscow about 15 minutes away across the state line shortly before 3 a.m. and then appearing to return around 5:30 a.m. On November 29th, police searched vehicles registered to Washington State University students, revealed a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra registered to Kohberger, originally with Pennsylvania plates that were later registered in Washington. And then also we know in the circumstantial evidence is that he returned back to the scene at 9 a.m. So a lot of circumstantial evidence. Now let's peel back all the layers on what we know as far as the physical evidence. And this is a lot of the physical evidence here that has been released in the unsealed PCA. So let me get a drink of water here really quick, and we'll start going through the physical evidence. So Kohberger's DNA was found on the left bottom snap of the USMC K-bar style knife sheath found on Kaylee's bed. We know that. If Kohberger's DNA comes back as a match, then it limits the defense's arguments, but doesn't eliminate them. So that it limits their defense, but it's not going to eliminate them. And that's something that, they may be able to argue, like, Bryan was at that house before he came over, maybe he was at a Halloween party and he dressed up as I'm just throwing ideas out there. He dressed up as a soldier. He had that knife. He put it down in the house. Maybe Kaylee found it and put it on her bed. I'm just throwing anything out, some theories that they could come up with, and how his DNA was on that sheath and found at the crime scene. So we know on December 27th, police in Pennsylvania recovered a DNA sample from the trash outside the Kohberger family residence in Albright, Pennsylvania. And it says DNA proves at least 99.9998% of the male population would be expected to be excluded from the possibility of being the suspect's biological father. And that's what it's in the affidavit. We know that there was a Vans type shoe print outside DM's door. Oh, excuse me. If it matches his footwear, that will help. The physical description by DM is amazing. That is great. There's an eyewitness at the scene. She totally got the description allegedly of Kohberger. So it says roommate witnessed a masked, athletic built figure generally matching the description of BK. Bushy eyebrows, at least 5'10", approached and then left the residence through the sliding glass door. Bryan was spotted by the FBI cleaning the white Hyundai Elantra at parents' house in PA with medical gloves on, and that's what prompted the arrest warrant. So the affidavit is super strong. So you have a super strong affidavit based on DNA, the location data, and the FBI's help. This should nail Kohberger to the crime. This should lock it down. As far as the case, I think it's going to be a long case filled with lots of meticulous information. The case against Bryan will be strong, and the defense is going to have its work cut out for them. And like I said, I think that the prosecution is going to build this mega case where you just come in and literally sweep away the court in about a day, and it just points all the fingers and signs towards Kohberger. The DNA lines up, it matches, the footprint is matched to a shoe. They find DNA in the car. We know we have DNA on the sheath that is allegedly at this point pointing towards Kohberger. Or it's going to be this very long, drawn out case where there's meticulousness and some things don't line up, and you have to go into more of a subdivide of some specific evidence in this case. So that's why I said, hang in there. This case may take a long time when it goes to trial. So, okay. Now, this is how I think that the defense could argue in this case. So keep in mind, the defendant's father was not excluded. Authorities, however, do not have the suspect's DNA yet. Now, where it could go depends on when ultimately they get Kohberger's DNA. So as far as we know, they don't have Kohberger's DNA yet, but it does give them, because of the arrest and the PCA, it does give them probable cause to buckle swab Kohberger's cheek and get a DNA sample. So that's going to be the smoking gun. That's going to be the one that's going to really take him down. So the thing that's just scary about that in the prosecution side, but could work on the defense side, is the DNA test could be negative or inconclusive, and that would be a huge win for the defense in this case. Contaminated crime scene. They could argue that, maybe they get some of the police up on the stand and find out that there's contamination, how they collected data and samples in this crime scene, and they come across that it's been contaminated. That would be a huge win for the defense as well. Um, One of the points that are flagged by experts came in the form of the AT&T phone records scrutinized by law enforcement between 2:47 a.m. and 4:48 a.m. on the night of the slayings. Authorities say Kohberger turned his cell phone off to conceal, quote, to conceal the location during the quadruple homicide that occurred at King Road residence. Area between WSU is not, and this is what you have to keep in mind, the area between WSU is not flush with cell towers. So the defense could turn around and say, hey, look, he didn't turn his phone off. It just lost signal. He was out driving around. Maybe he couldn't sleep. And big deal. It lost signal during that time. A lot of people dropped their calls around that time. Another piece of another way that the defense could come into this too is say that Bryan's been at that house before. And they could just say he partied there, he hung out, and that's why I was saying, maybe they say something like, "Oh, well, he was at a Halloween party and he dressed up as a soldier. That's how the sheath got there, etc." And you guys kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about there. So stalking, but he never acted on it. Maybe he just became obsessed with one of the girls in that house. He thought she was beautiful and started following her. And the defense could use, Bryan's just some kind of loser who's socially awkward, who lived in a university town and was obsessed with a couple attractive young women and just followed them around, but never acted on anything. If the evidence is accepted by the grand jury, the evidence tying Kohberger to the crime allegedly would reflect mistakes he would have singularly trained to recognize as a criminology student. And, that's where he could help in his public defender. Maybe there's some things that he sees in this evidence and says, hey, maybe you should explore something like this. Because you have to keep in mind, he knows the process. He knows this process. He's been studying this. He has a PhD in it. So he's been studying this process. And I'm sure that they are, as much as they're helping in his defense, they're going to pick his mind as well and see where, all this could ultimately land in favor for him. So yeah, that's really some of the things that I wanted to go through and discuss this evening. Again, I think this is going to be a very long, long trial. And again, it's going to point on a lot of things to knock this one out of the park for the prosecution. The DNA, the collection of samples in that white Hyundai Elantra. Does the footprint have anything to do with Bryan? The bloody footprint? Can they find the shoes that match up to anywhere with Bryan? Do they find the knife? I don't see that probably happening at this juncture in the case. And I think those are going to be probably your most things that really lock in and say, hey, this is what did it. So the DNA is going to be the biggest one. That's going to be the top thing. If that comes back and it matches him 100%, or 99.998, and it puts that 0.02%, it's him. He did it. He did it. So that's really it. That's all the information that I kind of wanted to go through this evening. I'm going to be back tomorrow night at the same time at 8 o'clock. And what I was going to do on that stream is go through a actual walk of the crime scene. I don't have any of the crime scene photos, but kind of reenact, and kind of go through of what we think based on the evidence happened that evening. I'll have a presentation for that. And again, I want to appreciate everybody for coming over, watching the stream this evening. If you could, on the way out, before we close this up, just go down there and hit that thumbs up button, because it does help get this out into the algorithm, push this channel along. And again, tomorrow I'll be back 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'd love for you to all come over here. Appreciate everybody for joining and subscribing on the channel. Please make sure to hit the bell notification so you get all notifications when I go live or when I drop a new video. And also, if you can just go over and interact on those videos, give them some watch time, give them some thumbs up, because that helps push all of this this channel out there in the algorithm. So thank you so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, again, I'm the opinionated idiot. And like they say, I almost screwed up my line. Opinions are like assholes, and everybody's got one. I'll see you guys next time. See ya.